I want to bring in John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, who, along with others, had been hard at work on the negotiation of this development. Mayor, thank you very much for being with us. And I guess I want to start with your reaction to it. How disappointed are you that they're walking away?
Well, I'm disappointed, but I've also been in business, as you know, and in business, there are lots of deals that just don't end up coming to pass because you can't come to acceptable terms. Events like the pandemic intervene and make it more difficult sometimes to make these deals. So I'm disappointed. And I will say everybody acted in good faith. Sidewalk, Google were people who were committed to trying to get this done. We just didn't. And I would say I'm very gratified at the fact that Google and Sidewalk are both going to keep their presence in Toronto. Google employs hundreds of people here, and I hope they'll employ more going forward. And we have the quayside piece of land to go back at and find a partner and do the kinds of things with it that we want to do in terms of innovation and sustainability.
When we look back at the process, there was obviously a certain amount of controversy that emerged that I think took some by surprise, including potentially Alphabet, on the privacy side, on the use of technology. Could this have unfolded differently? Could things have worked differently that might have created a better atmosphere and kept Sidewalk at the table?
I'm not one of those who's afraid of American multinationals. Heaven knows that if it wasn't for the investment made across this country by multinationals from all kinds of different countries in the world, we wouldn't have the economy we have. But there's no question this thing got off to a bad start, and it wasn't the fault of any particular person. There was just a few hiccups at the beginning and some issues that hadn't been anticipated. I guess I always tend to look for the good news, which is that by going through the process we did, Toronto benefited in that we now have a digital framework that I think is going to serve us very well in terms of addressing some of these kinds of privacy concerns. But I think there's no question that the start that we had wasn't the best, and it probably did, slow us down in terms of the ability to make a deal. And sometimes it's all about momentum. And when you don't have that, as the business people know who are watching, most of the people are business people. If you don't have the momentum, and you sometimes just end up not being able to make the deal. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way it is.
There will be lost investment, lost jobs, lost potential here. How much of that, if any, had been factored into your thinking about the city, or was it all still so far away that this was all just kind of something that was going to happen down the road?
I think it mainly was something that was, reputational at this stage of the game. I mean, we have, sorry about that, we're having a little problem with the iPad here, but we have, a tech boom that has gone on here. And I believe once the pandemic is over with, it's a tech boom that will continue because we have the smart people, we have the location, we have the brain power to be anything that we want to be. And so I think once the pandemic is over, we still have this piece of land. It is still one of the best located pieces of land in all of North America. It's at the heart of a city that is growing like crazy and is respected around the world. And so I think all those fundamentals are still there. And so I think we'll be able to make up for any lost ground. We've lost some time here. Admittedly, that's true. But I don't think, I'm sorry this didn't happen. I really, think that Alphabet, Google, Sidewalk could have been a great partner for Toronto, but they will continue to be a partner here in different ways. And we will proceed to do something with that piece of land that will be innovative. It'll supply new housing and transportation. It will be achieving new goals in terms of sustainability. And so we'll just move forward.
And when we think about moving forward, are there obvious candidates that will emerge here, or will this, because this has been a piece of land that's been an opportunity for an awful long time, Mayor?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm optimistic about is there's so much going on in the city. Before the pandemic, and again, all the cranes that were in the sky, a record number in all of North America, building things, office buildings and residential buildings and a whole host of other things in our city, those will all continue. And so I think there's lots of people out there who want to build in Toronto. There are people from all over the world who want to come to Toronto. They've been halted in coming here because of the pandemic, but they'll come again. And people will invest, and the great talent base we have here will continue to produce economic gain that I hope will fire up the rest of the country, because we are the economic engine, and I want to resume that role just as soon as we can. And I think this is a very valuable piece of land in a great location in the heart of a great city. And so to me, that's something that's worth being excited about, notwithstanding today's disappointment.
We heard an announcement from the federal government today that in conjunction with the provinces, they're going to work to top up some essential worker pay. Will that benefit the city at all? Will some of those workers be caught in kind of your pool of employees?
every dollar that comes in from these various federal government relief programs and the provincial government programs, every single one of them. And I commend both governments for the fact they've been very responsive to the different sets of needs that exist among people affected by the pandemic. Every one of those dollars will go back into the economy. People are paying rent, they're buying food, they're buying clothes for their kids, they're doing things that benefit and keep the country going and keep business going. So I think all these programs are good things, and I thank the governments for the fact that they've come forward with them. I'll be saying more today about the fact that the municipalities need a bit of help now, because we too have continued to provide valuable services across the country to Canadians, whether it be the fire, police, transit, and so on. But it's at a huge cost because our revenues have dropped off, and we need now the very same governments that have come to the aid, properly so, of individuals and businesses who are struggling, to help the cities of Canada as well, so that we can continue to provide those services. We don't have the capacity to run a deficit, and we can't raise taxes right now, and I don't think it's a good time to cut services. So I'm looking forward to the same kind of support coming from those governments for the cities of Canada, and I'm worried about Toronto, but I want all cities to be considered in that regard.
Do you have a dollar figure on the kind of aid you're looking for, Mayor?
Yeah, well, look, all these sound big, but I guess in the context of what's already been invested to keep us going, we've asked for the cities of Canada as a whole have asked for between $10 and $15 billion to make up for the losses that we've experienced. In Toronto's case, we estimate that the cost of the pandemic in terms of lost revenue and additional costs will be about $1.5 billion. We're losing about $65 million a week. Just transit revenues alone are more than $20 million every single week. So that's the number. But, if you look at 10 to 15 billion, which is a lot of money by anybody's account, it is a modest sum compared to the amount that's already quite properly been invested in making sure we keep the economy and keep the whole country going.